Thanks for coming out. It was a rainy night. It looks like the rain stopped, so it's a nice turnout on a somewhat dreary day. So thanks for coming out. My name's Gabe Gottlieb, and I'm the director of the Ethics, Religion, and Society program here at Xavier. What we do here at Xavier is we oversee part of the core curriculum, but we also host an event and lecture series. And one of the things that we've done this year is we've attempted to be more engaged with the community and try to do some things that are really important, not only to faculty and students here, but also more broadly, the Cincinnati community. And this is one of those events. It's a follow-up on a panel that we had last semester. Some of you were there, a panel about cooperatives in Cincinnati. And tonight and tomorrow, we are hosting a conference called the Cooperative Economy, Building a Sustainable Future. And I'm happy to welcome Jessica Gordon-Nimhard, who will talk to us tonight about her research on the history of African American cooperatives. So tonight really is the kickoff of a conference. I know many of you are going to be here tomorrow throughout that conference. If you're not planning on being here tomorrow, I'm not sure why. But that will start 8:30 tomorrow with registration and coffee, and we'll get started at 9. There are a lot of great panels, workshops, and then another keynote by Melissa Hoover about seeing the value and values and the worker cooperatives in the 21st century. So that will be certainly an interesting day, and I hope to see many of you there tomorrow. I want to thank a number of folks who have been involved in organizing, not only, and I'll thank them again tomorrow, because I really am thankful, involved not only in organizing tonight, but really the whole conference and the series of events that we've done. And first I want to thank Adam Konopka, who helped co-organize this with me, along with the team really, but he was a real leader in putting this together. Also, I want to thank James Buchanan and Cynthia Cummins at the Brueggemann Center. Their work is invaluable. Sean Riney at the Eigel Center, Tim Kloppenberg, Kathleen Smythe, Liz Bloom, Nancy Berteau, and everyone at Xavier who helped put this conference together. There are a number of people in the local cooperative movement who were a really key. Tim Kraus from Interfaith Business Builders, Kristen Barker at Cincinnati Union Cooperative Initiative. Both of them actually hosted a tour today in which Jessica and I and some other folks toured some of the local cooperatives here, and thanks for putting that together. Tonight's program, I should mention, is made possible in part by the support of, I feel like an NPR ad, by Ohio Humanities. Ohio Humanities is a group that hosts and sponsors a lot of humanities programming in the state, and they've helped us out with this program. And I think this program and the conference tomorrow are an example of really the humanities in action, the humanities in practice. I don't know if you think of yourself, Jessica, as a humanities scholar, but you wrote a humanities book about the history of the economic thought and practice of African American cooperatives. So thank you to Ohio Humanities. I'm delighted to introduce Jessica Gordon-Nimhard tonight. Welcome her to Xavier University. She is Professor of Community Justice and Social Economic Development. That's an awesome title. I want to have that title. She's in the Department of African Studies at John Jay College. She's really also, I should want to say, the author of a foundational book on the history of African American cooperatives, which you can purchase at your local bookstore right over here. It's a foundational book, and the reason I say it's foundational is because this was evidenced by our conversations today. It's laying the foundations for an forgotten history, a history that many of us were not aware of, and she's laying those foundations. And she was saying today that many people she's talked to about her work say, hey, you didn't add this, you didn't talk about this movement or this group. And that's why it's foundational, because she's laying the foundation so other people can build upon it. And I think that's really important work to do. And so I'm delighted to welcome her tonight. She's going to give a talk called Cooperatives and the Struggle for African American Economic Justice. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, right? Great. Thanks. Thank you all for having me. I cannot start a speech in Cincinnati without acknowledging Ray West, who is a mentor to many of us and a very important person in Cincinnati. He also was very important in my early years working in the worker co-op movement. So he will never be forgotten. I also like to start my talks acknowledging the original occupants of the land. I think they're the Swanee and Iroquois, but if somebody knows better, you can let me know. But that's important to me because part of the co-op movement, and especially the movement for African Americans, was about land ownership and the best use of land and control over land, as well as control over general economy. And so it's important for us to recognize who was here and who was displaced. And we obviously are in a world where we continue to displace people, and I'm hoping that we can also start to use cooperatives to keep people in place and to make things better for them in place. I also acknowledge those who have worked through history without just compensation, and those who I really stand on the shoulders of, those who really looked to liberation through cooperative ownership. And you'll see in a minute how I uncovered and learned about that for African Americans in the U.S. I'm not sure if I have an audience who knows what co-ops are, so I'm going to start with what are co-ops. The company's owned by people who use their services or make their products, and we call them member owners. They form the cooperative for a particular purpose and to address a need. And they provide a quality and affordable, they look for quality and affordability together in order to address that need. Usually it's something the market is not adequately providing. And then the other really important piece about cooperatives are they are businesses, but they are democratically governed by the principle of one person, one vote. If you know about investor-owned firms, their principle is one share, one vote. So if you have enough money to buy 100 shares, you have 100 votes, versus the person who only has enough money for one share or 2 or 10. And so it's, in the investor model, it's the tyranny of the money. And in the cooperative model, it's about people, right? People-centered economics, people relationships, people govern. Cooperatives actually exist throughout the world, and we have a worldwide movement. They operate under a set of principles. They're usually considered 7 principles, though some co-ops actually have added some. And I'll just mention them generally. I haven't really listed them in the order that they are, but I think I've covered all 7. Jointly owned and governed through democratic process, democratic participation, where directors are members and members have the vote. That one person, one vote, as I said. Open participation, that also includes open books and economic transparency. Limited compensation to capital, so even if it's a for-profit co-op, which many of them are, the purpose for profit. The purpose, as I said, is for need and to address community needs and solve community problems. Continuous education in order to run a business or an enterprise cooperatively, collectively, democratically. People have to be educated about the business. They have to have continuous education about what's happening, how to run a business, how to read the books, and also how to operate democratically. Because we don't really know how to do that because we don't do it in our daily lives. Concern for community, giving back to community, connecting with community, and then the last one is cooperation among cooperatives, working with other cooperatives, trying to keep economic activity within the similar democratic structure and supporting other cooperatives. When I first started learning about cooperatives, it seemed that they were really just a European model. and that everything supposedly started in 1844, which is when the Rochdale pioneers in Birmingham, England, started a co-op. But the more you study co-ops, the more you realize that they're not just European, they're not just for middle class whites, they're not just for landowners or hippies, they're really an economic structure that anybody can use, that has been used by multiple groups of people throughout history. Every group of people in the world, every historical moment in the world, we've had some level of economic cooperation, even if they weren't what we consider formal cooperative enterprises right now. And so the missing story of indigenous cooperative efforts, of African American cooperative efforts, even Latino cooperative efforts, has been a challenge in the co-op community, especially the more of us who say this should be a community economic development strategy and we need to know more about it. So I actually took up that challenge first for myself and then decided for the movement to make sure to recover the African American history, because when I started in this business, I was told that African Americans didn't participate or know about or care about or practice cooperative economics. And you'll see, and if you have my book, you'll know that there's actually a long continuous history of African Americans participating among themselves, but also participating in the larger cooperative movement. What I also found was that we can look at two strands of why African Americans participated and engaged in cooperative economics. The first one was that discrimination, oppression, forced segregation really made it imperative, especially for economic survival, for African Americans to group together, pool their resources, work together, and create economic structures, institutions, activity for themselves, because it was almost impossible to do it in the mainstream economy. And the second was voluntary segregation, where African Americans came together for a political purpose, to address a political purpose through an economic strategy, and that was to first make sure you controlled your economics so that you had some economic independence, some economic stability, so that when you engaged in political and civil rights activities, it was harder for white supremacists to stop you, because they normally took away all your economic livelihood when they were mad about what you did politically. So having the co-ops allowed you to have some